Well, good evening. Riaan Coetzee, Fortis Proactive Defense Solutions. I am talking to Roux Wildenboer, one of the senior instructors on the loan operator course. Roux, good evening and welcome.
Hi, Riaan. Thanks so much. It's great to talk to you again.
We got a question on YouTube, specifically on a video that you and I discussed, concealed carry-on. Now, just for the viewers, we read your comments, and we are now going to make a video about this question to answer it. And also remember that that same video is also available on the podcast on Spotify. The podcast is called Quick Shots. Do check that out. The question is, what do I do with my firearm, my legal firearm, when I go camping, when I go to bed, when I drive in my car? Do I invest in one of those dashboard holsters, etc.? How do we reply to this?
It's for many people a bit of a difficult one. And I want to start by just reiterating what the South African legal framework says regarding this, man. Skipping past all of the, all of the prerequisites for self-defense and all of that. There's a little bit in the South African Firearms Control Act, which says that your firearm must at all times either be locked away in the safe that must adhere to a certain set of prerequisites, a certain set of standards, or it must be within your immediate sphere of control. So it must be within your control at all times. There's been a couple of cases where people have argued that perhaps if your hunting rifle is inside of its rifle bag in the back of your boot, does that mean that it is within your control? And the answer is yes, it most certainly is, because you cannot reasonably keep it anywhere else. It's impractical. So the law in this case does look at your scenario and your situation, but there's never any excuse for leaving your firearm in a car. There's never that you are not inside of or standing right next to any firearm. It's generally, let's start with driving. The odds of you being in a car accident, I think in any country, is a lot higher than the odds of you actually being in a scenario where you have to draw your firearm. Yes, on Lone Operator and in Fortis, we do train all of the vehicle combat aspects. We do present courses which teaches the clients to how to act inside of a car and outside of their car when they are under attack and when they are forced to draw their weapon. So there certainly are scenarios where knowing what to do with your firearm when you are attacked inside your car or around your car is of critical importance. But if you go by statistics, you're much more likely to get into a car accident than you are being in an attack. So the primary thing that you need to remember, especially when you're driving, is that if you are in a car accident which renders you unconscious, so you lose your consciousness, you bump your head against the windshield, or the car rolls and you are in need of assistance, and people need to either drag you out of the car, that's how bad it can get, or your family are in need of assistance, or the other passengers in the car, you want your firearm on your person. Because in a scenario like that, the first thing that you are likely to forget is anything that is not on you. Okay, if your cell phone is in your pocket, it will go with you wherever you are. If your wallet is in your pocket, if your TQ is in your pocket, the odds of you losing it somewhere in the car is much less. Your pocket knife, and so as well your firearm. So to us, and what we teach, it's a relatively bad idea to carry off your body when you are driving. So this also counts for the magnetic holsters underneath the dash. It counts for holsters that clip into the side of the door. It counts for keeping your firearm in the cubbyhole, in the glove compartment. It counts for keeping your firearm in the middle console between the driver's seat and the passenger seat. Those are all places where if you're in a car accident or there's any kind of scenario that forces you out of the car and doesn't give you the opportunity to grab stuff. Say you're in a very bad situation where you don't see attackers coming and they come at you, and all of a sudden you are pointed from all different directions with guns and people are telling you to get out of the car. If you go for the gun in the cubby or in the side of the door, or if you reach underneath the dashboard, your odds of being shot is almost 100%. Compare that with if I carry concealed on my body, I can probably still make it out of the car with my hands in the surrender position, submitting as you should, but you are at least retaining the firearm and you're giving yourself the opportunity to get into a better space from which maybe you can draw and fight or find cover and start engaging. Say there's a child or a family member or whatever in the car. You don't want the bad guys driving off. And in that case, it ticks all of the boxes for an unlawful, lethal attack on another human life. So all of that checks the box, and then you may be in a better position if that's what the scenario requires to draw. So when you're in the car, our advice is on your person. Okay. Also, along with that, we advise people to carry concealed because at least in South Africa, there's guys at robots and stop streets or the petrol attendant or whoever. You never know who's crooked, who's actually doing what they're doing with malicious intent, and they like to look inside the car. If you're a South African and you're ever at a stop street or a robot, the guys that try and sell you stuff, they always look inside the car. Please pay very close attention. They walk past you, even if you say, yes, sorry, I don't want sunglasses right now, whatever. As they walk past, they glance inside of your car. One of my family members was, there was an attempted smash and grab, because this person stopped at a filling station and they had their laptop on their passenger seat. Now the petrol attendant didn't do anything, okay? But as they drove away, the smash and grab attempt happened at that robot. And there's people that communicate. I'm not trying to incriminate anyone or make accusations, but people communicate with one another. There's syndicates working together to steal these things, and it's never just one person. So on your body, concealed, that's what we advise. If you're transporting long guns or hunting rifles or whatever, or other handguns, obviously it's not always a possibility to carry everything that you have on your body. Yes. Say you come from a sport shooting thing where you've got your gun and a backup gun. Sometimes it's not practical to carry both on your person, although of course if you want to be cool, that's what you do. But then it's acceptable to have the gun in a gun case locked somewhere else in the car, but you still have control over that, and you do have a loaded firearm on you with which you can defend from anyone trying to steal your firearms or injure you yourself, in the process. So when you get to a car, a lot of guys, they go for convenience and they just stow it somewhere in a bag or in a laptop bag. That's a very big problem because smash and grabs happen. They think they're stealing a laptop and they are getting a handgun.
And of course, if your firearm gets stolen, you've got some questions to answer because they tend to really frown upon.
You've got very big problems. In South Africa, you can be declared unfit to possess a firearm. They can take away your licenses and they can take away your guns if you have been found to be negligent in something like that. So like if you forget your pistol on the seat or on the basin of a public toilet, for instance, that's happened. That's happened before to police officers and civilians alike. That is definitely negligence. And if you lose your firearm in that way, you can very easily be declared unfit to possess any firearm. So it's a big danger. You asked about when you go camping and when you go sleeping. So obviously when you go camping, at least where I go camping, the recommendation is to have your firearm within reach. When I sleep, I have my firearm within reach as well, but I have a bit of a bed holster setup. So you get very cool gear that you can actually holster your gun in a holster that that attaches to the side of your bed. So it's not loose somewhere on your bedside table. Because I think the danger is always, say you wake up in the middle of the night and something has gone bump. I mean, I fumble to find my phone. I fumble to find the button for the lamp. I fumble on nearly everything. I'm half asleep still. I don't know where anything is. So the danger is always you fumble with a gun and it falls off, and now you're scrambling around on the floor to find it. Or if it's not in a holster, I mean, you fumble and, for instance, accidentally your finger may find its way into the trigger guard, and an accidental shot can actually go off. So when you sleep, the advice is not to have it in the safe, right? Because if you do wake up in the middle of the night, you may not have the time to go get the firearm from the safe. Okay,
Exactly.
that's a lot of noise that is being made. It's a lot of time that someone may. I mean, that's one of the biggest things in South Africa is these farm attacks, and people kind of scramble to go to where the firearm is, and then in that time they get overpowered, or they get attacked, or they get injured, and they're basically out of the fight. So definitely within reach, concealed if you can. It needs to be there where if you do go bump in the night, it can be the first thing that you reach for, along with a flashlight, hopefully, because you need positive target ID. So on that point, I'm not saying you can shoot at things in the dark. I'm saying have your firearm and have something that can make a light, so you can ID what's going on. You can figure out what's going on. If the guys are already inside of your room, if the attackers are already inside of your room, you're already in a bad space, right? That's why we talk about layered defense. You need to kind of be alerted to these attackers before they make it to your room. You need to have alarms. You need to have dogs. You need to have floorboards that squeak in the middle of the night. You need to kind of have burglar. You need to have a series of things that is going to wake you up and alert you to someone trying to gain entry into your house. And then, you grab the firearm, not because you want to kill them, but because it's just a precaution. So to the viewers out there, your first thought shouldn't be, I'm going to shoot someone. It should be, I'd rather have this and not need it, because if someone is coming into my house, we've been through the legal discussion on this, but you were probably justified in believing that this guy is going to do you serious harm. So have it and not need it, then need it and not have it, of course. So when you camp, of course, it's a little bit more difficult, but have it on your person. So I like to have a shoe. This is a trick that I learned from someone I shot with a while back. A shoe with the muzzle of the handgun or the muzzle of the holster inside of the shoe. So the pistol is basically standing up. And then if you want with something like a shirt or a sock or something over it, just so it's concealed a little bit. I mean, if you've got mates that tend to rip open your tent in the morning to wake you up or mess around with you, whatever, you don't want the gun to be the first thing that they see or maybe stumble over or whatever. So be intelligent about it. When you go camping and you've got children, be mindful that they are properly educated in what is a firearm, that you have it with you. You don't want them to see it and not know what it is. So my personal opinion, of course, there's people that disagree with me, is, the people close to you should be aware that you have a firearm. And so if something happens, they are not completely surprised, and especially for kids as well. I grew up in a house where I was taught very strictly what is firearms. I was given the opportunity to shoot with them whenever I wished at shooting ranges. So there was really nothing funny to me about firearms. So I never really wanted to go behind my dad's back and mess around with it, because I could just ask him, can I shoot with it? And he says, yeah, let's go to the range, no problem. So that's my opinion.
I think it gets a bit interesting when you go camp, for instance, in one of the national parks where they do not allow you to take your firearm. I know when I've been to the Kruger Park, they had this bag that you had to put your gun in, and they seal it. It gets like a little lead seal at the top. So I just carried that bag in a rucksack with me, a small rucksack. Everywhere I went in the park, I had that rucksack with me. It was just never away from my person. In the bag, sealed, because you have to show it when you go out. But, you have to drive there and you have to drive back. So
Absolutely.
I'd rather not go
Absolutely. So,
without it.
no,
Um,
absolutely. So, I mean, in places where you absolutely cannot carry, and you can always be one of those guys that say, well, I'm not going to go anywhere where I cannot carry. But I mean, seeing the Kruger National Park is a big thing. A lot of people enjoy it, but I
yeah,
also like to have my firearm with me for the road there. Absolutely, for the travel there. We live in a dangerous country, in a dangerous world, so
exactly.
something can happen. So if that's the case, then abide by the law. Um, but then, as you say, exactly as you do, keep the firearm with you. There's Even though it's sealed, that's no excuse for you to leave it at the camp while you go on a game drive. It has to be with you,
Mm.
regardless. Same thing with, like, if you are now invited to one of your family members' birthday party at a casino, like Monte Casino, like the South Africans will know, you are obliged to hand in your firearm, and you need to go through very stringent security checks there, and
Yes.
um, at least then the way that they work is you lock your firearm in the safe there, and agreed, it's not with you, but it's one of the places that the law actually provides for you being able to stow your firearm there, and you have the key to that safe. And remember, you have the only key to that safe, and if you lose that key, then they charge you the cost of the safe because they really need to drill it open. So, I mean, my advice is try not to go to too many places too often where you can't carry your firearm. I feel naked without my gun. Um,
Mm.
but if you're forced to, if the situation now forces you, then abide by the law. Don't do anything illegal. A
Yeah.
lot of places have, and maybe this is worth touching on. A lot of places have a no firearms allowed little board, um, in front of the entrance. And by and large, and the legal experts will obviously know more, but by and large, that is just a right of admissions thing. So they say if they spot a firearm on you, or they catch you with a gun or whatever, for whatever reason, which they shouldn't because you'd be concealing properly, but if they do,
Mm-hmm.
the worst that they can do is they can ask you to leave, which is fine. It's not, you cannot be criminally charged for
Mm.
carrying a weapon, say, into Spar where they say no firearms allowed, because they do in the front of many shopping malls and centers and whatever other places you go to, restaurants, they say no firearms allowed. That is just a thing of, they reserve the right to admit you into that place, and they are saying they don't allow firearms on their private premises, and they may ask you to
Yes.
leave. Otherwise, it becomes trespassing, and they may ask you to leave for whatever reason.
I'm a big fan
So
of
in
those.
those cases, carry and don't conceal.
Yeah.
Carry and conceal properly. Don't advertise.
I'm I'm a big fan of those little boards, those little signs, because I know for a fact that it stops criminals from bringing their guns in as well.
Exactly, they're
Anyway,
criminals.
I'm
Yeah,
just,
yeah, yeah. No, absolutely.
I'm just, yeah, very effective. I'm just sitting here thinking now, years ago, no, decades ago, actually, probably in the 90s, somewhere, for a couple of years in a row, I drove through to Sun City every year. Is it October, November, the big golf tournament? I don't know if they
Yeah,
still do
yeah,
it,
yeah,
but
yeah,
then
yeah.
it was a big thing. What they called it, I think, the $1 million tournament or something,
Okay.
which was quite cool. I've seen Ernie Els play and Retief Goosen. I saw Retief won the 1 year. I've seen, I can't remember if Ernie won, but I saw Tiger Woods playing in real life. All the big
Yeah.
names of that time. So it was a very cool outing. But I remember
Okay.
very distinctly that where you go into Sun City, then you get your parking, then you go through to where the golf happens. Um, at the entrance to this whole thing, they had a tent with individual safes. And the
Yeah.
same thing, you had to hand your firearm in and lock it in a safe, and
Yeah.
you had the key for that safe. So when you came out later, that evening or whenever you leave, you opened your safe. It was obviously manned at all times for security.
Yes.
So I don't know if
Yes.
they still do it. I don't even know if they still do the tournament, but I just remembered that now. And then the last thing that I want to touch on is fishing, because that is a very big South African thing to do. Well, not just South African, but it's big here. Guys go fishing.
Yeah.
What would you do if you went to the fish waters? Because preferably, I want to take my firearm with me. I want to have
Yeah.
it with me. And I honestly, I would just keep it on my person, even if it gets wet. I can always clean
100%.
it
100%.
and
So
get it dry.
yeah. So firstly, is my wife allows me to drink at home, so I don't have to go fish or play golf. Right. So to those of you
She's
who
nice.
just talk to your wife. She's probably okay with you drinking at home, so you don't have to fish or go play golf. Just by the way. Um, no, so I've been on several Orange River rafting trips, not to
Mm,
fish, but I had my firearm with me the whole time, and it did get wet, and it is still okay. So the
mm.
reason why we use corrosion protection, and we've had multiple discussions on gun maintenance and lube versus corrosion protection or whatever. Um, the gun is okay to get wet, even salt water. Okay, so
Mm.
I agree with you completely. Keep it on your person. It depends now on whether, I mean, you need to have the correct attire. Like if you do land up in the water, will the pistol just fall out and sink to the bottom of the river or the ocean, kind of thing, right? So,
Yep.
so remember to have a proper belt on with proper pants and a proper holster, so you don't actually lose the gun. But definitely keep it on you. Um, I mean, I would go so far as to say it's probably still okay to have it in a bag kind of next to you, but the first prize always, I mean, that's still, legally speaking, it's still within your control, right? So, but
Mm.
somebody can still come past, grab the bag and run. It's still, you can still lose it
Exactly.
more easily than when it's on your person. So I would, first prize, definitely on your person, but just in a way that you don't, I mean, if you land up in the water, you fall off or you fall in or whatever, you can't actually lose it to the bottom, because that's, I mean, that'll be a big problem. But today's firearms, if you maintain your gun properly, and after you know that it got wet, you strip it, get rid of the moisture and reapply. And if it's salt water, you need to rinse it properly with either normal water or something like, look, I know that the serious hardline gun cleaning guys, I've heard of people who just sort of chuck the gun into something like petrol or kerosene.
Mm.
Doesn't do the gun any harm. Maybe the plastic. So, like if you've got a plastic gun, then it dehydrates the plastic. So be careful for the Glocks and the CZ guys and whatever. But then just strip the gun, rinse off the salt water or whatever water, and then just be very thorough in reapplying. Um, not just grease, but also not just lubricant, but also corrosion protection. This is now where the ballistol spray or the ram, spray aerosol type stuff comes in, because that is
Yes.
fantastic for creating a very thin layer of oil over the metallic parts. But your guns are typically relatively corrosion resistant. If it does get wet, make sure about the inside of the barrel, okay, because they're right at the beginning of the grooves, right after the chamber. That area tends to
Mm.
pick up pitting corrosion very, very quickly if it gets wet, or especially salt water. So make sure that you lube the inside of the barrel, not generously, just a thin layer of lube, and then put a little brush
Yes.
or a paper through it, just so there's no lube buildup in the barrel next time you want to fire, right? So that's the danger. But yeah, on your person, definitely when you go fish, that's the only way that I can see it happening. If you go, look, I mean, if you go on that, if you go diving or whatever, then obviously you can't. I mean, then you can't have your firearm
Sure.
probably on you. I mean, I'm sure you can if you really want to, but I can't see that fitting into the scuba suit and stuff. So there are certain activities where you really can't like carry
Yeah.
your firearm, and you need to decide, what it's worth, because you're not gonna. I mean, look, say you go play a game of tennis or paddle or whatever, or cricket, action cricket, whatever. I mean, you're probably not going to carry your firearm. So just adjust
Yes.
where you put it accordingly. Either leave it at home or like have it in a bag on court with you. Still, I mean, like the key here is in your control. But if it's sitting up at the stadium in a bag and it's 100 meters away from you, I mean, you need to use
That's
common sense. That's completely unacceptable.
yes. Yeah.
So,
No, I
so,
fully
but it
agree.
needs to be in your control. Absolutely.
Paul, Roux, I think, or I trust that this will answer that question in full, and maybe anybody else who was wondering about this. So I'm going to end this there. If you like the video, you know what to do. Click on the like button, please. Subscribe to the channel, help us grow it. It helps the algorithm so that we can reach a wider audience. And as always, smash that bell icon so that you can get notifications of new videos coming out. If you are interested in anything to do with the loan operator courses, link in the description below. Check it out, and we look forward to seeing you on a range one of these days. Roux, that's it for me. Thank you so much for your time. Enjoy your evening.
Thanks, Riaan, and goodbye to all of our listeners. And remember to ask questions. Like we look at the comments and we do try and
Absolutely.
address the questions as far as we can.